Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly think they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, because they're special. And in this episode, a Karen threatens to have OP fired for the most ridiculous reason ever, guys. For refusing to date her daughter. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lineup. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and as always, your stories can be sent to this email right here. So I'm a 28-year-old female, and I'm single. I don't have kids and I live alone. I also do not work overtime or do anything beyond my work. Also, I'm not in the US. First, let me explain what my work is like. So we're an internal auditing company. I work in the logistics auditing division. What that means is when a company hires us, we shadow their workers to see where the efficiency can be increased. Sometimes that means working night shift, delivery, warehouse, manufacturing, etc. We're very lucky that we have an awesome manager and team leader. Once we divide the tasks, you can do them whenever you want, as long as your report is handed in when it should be. You can work from home, from the office, at 3 a.m., less than 40 hours, it doesn't matter. So for the 6 years I've been on this team, another female coworker who's 30 years old has been doing her absolute best to work the least amount possible. The girl is very lazy and she's slightly entitled. First, she's always either pregnant and not able to shadow anyone, or she's on maternity leave. Or she's on her yearly vacation, or conveniently sick when it's time to do some heavy-duty work. And when she is in the office, she's dumping her work on others. She uses her kids as an excuse all the time. Now, we usually have the other team members pick up her slack, but I refuse to do so. This time, we're auditing a larger company, so all hands on deck. And for the first time, she's neither pregnant nor on maternity leave. And she just got back from her yearly leave. The company we're auditing is in another city, so the members who'll have to go will be staying there for 3 weeks. This time, it's my turn to stay in the office and do the data organization and analysis. Everyone in the office rotates out of town, so it's fair for everybody. The girl asked me to switch with her, because apparently she can't leave her 5 kids alone with her husband. She then tried to guilt trip me by saying that what she would have to pay for childcare is more than what she would get paid for the whole month, and that I don't have any responsibilities like her, so I should just go. So I told her, well, they're not my kids, so I don't see how that's my problem, and me not having responsibilities doesn't mean I don't have things to do. Hearing that, she's now pouting like a little kid. And some coworkers are saying that I don't know how hardworking moms have it and that I should be more compassionate. So am I the a-hole in this situation? So yeah, guys, being out of town while having kids does suck, especially when you have 5 kids. With that said though, it sounds like being able to travel is a part of the job description, so she's got to figure out a way to make it work. OP is definitely not the a-hole in the situation for refusing to swap places with her. Like they say, just because they happen to be single and don't have kids, doesn't mean their time isn't equally as important. But guys, let me know what you think. If you were in OP's position, would you swap places with that mom so she can stay home and take care of her kids? Who's showing some compassion here? Okay, so I'm a typical long-time lurker and first-time poster. This just happened, and the only word that comes to mind is wow. So the previous owner of my house, we'll call him H, calls a few days ago, interested in buying the hot tub I have on my lower deck. I bought the house from him including the hot tub and the shed. When he sold the property to me, he was on an off-again, on-again relationship with his now wife. I told him in the first phone call that I'd want time to think on it and do some research. I don't use the hot tub. I haven't in the whole year I've lived here, so I was open to selling it. Through his own admission, it was worth only $12,000 brand new 2 years ago, and it's seen very light use. No cosmetic damage besides being dirty. So while playing phone tag with him over the next couple of days, I had the number of around $8,000 to $9,000 to be expected for it. And that's when out of the blue, 2 days ago, his wife Karen calls me, and she begins to chat with me about the hot tub. I start with asking how they plan to move it, and she says they'll hire professional movers. And then I asked what they were thinking as far as pricing goes. She then goes into this long monologue about how they've put in a lot of sweat equity into the home, how they were the ones to buy it, set it up, yada yada yada, and then tells me that they're looking to pay $3,000 for it and not a penny more. I was taken aback. I told her I'd have to think on it and further negotiations would probably be coming. At that, she sounded very annoyed, and she rushed the entire time on the phone with me like she was working and I was inconveniencing her, even though she called me. So fast forward to today. Obviously, I decide to not go through with the sale, and to be gentle about it. I called the husband and told him that I don't want to sell it because it's part of the home's value. Which is partially true, but I didn't want to come out and say that Karen tried to offensively lowball me. The husband was very understanding, and he asked me, sounding almost scared, to please text Karen and let her know before he got home. I thought that was a weird request at the time, but okay, sure. So I come to find out that I'm sure he knew what her reaction would be, and he just didn't want to take the full heat of it. So I text her explaining what I told the husband, and she texts back, "We left you a super clean place and had a lot of sweat equity invested. You personally did not make those improvements, yet you'll capitalize on those improvements. You should be lucky we're giving you $3,000 for it, when we bought it in the first place." She then went on to call me as greedy as the market, and that asking for the tub wasn't unreasonable because I barely used it at all. She then said to me, "Best wishes on getting what you think you deserve out of our improvements." I've yet to send a reply because I have no idea what to say to her. Yeah, if I were OP, I wouldn't even bother replying to her, because the conversation will probably just go in circles. And honestly, any sweat equity that they put into the property was probably already set into the purchase price that OP paid, so I don't know what the woman's rambling on about. Guys, the funny thing is, she might have already gotten the hot tub if she didn't open her insulting mouth. But hey, that's Karen's for ya. So I've been accused of a bunch of crimes, mostly sexual ones, and some against children because of the way I dress. My neighbor is so adamant about it all that she's got me a bit worried. So about a month ago, I moved in with my sister and her boyfriend into a neighborhood that's mostly families. Honestly, I didn't expect any trouble. My first introduction to this entitled woman, Karen, was my first week here. So one day, I went to check the mail and I wasn't wearing a bra. I had on a baggy t-shirt and basketball shorts though. Now, Karen's one of those southern women who spends all day in the yards pretending to garden, but they're actually spying on their neighbors. You know the type. So the woman waves at me and I waved back, trying to be pleasant. But all of a sudden, her face twists and she comes at me. Now, when she marched up to me, I thought it was to make a proper introduction or whatever. But out of nowhere, she starts lecturing me about not having a bra on. I'll admit, it was creepy and weird. Now, I'm not at all well endowed, and I go without frequently, and so far no one seemed to have picked up on it, but not Karen. Karen tells me to think about her children and Jesus, who's always watching, and my parents, who she knows raised me better than this. It was so goddamn weird. I felt like laughing in her face, but I didn't want there to be issues, so I said I'd be more diligent in the future, and Karen went about her business. Well, I guess wearing a bra wasn't good enough for Karen, y'all. Oh no. Not only is she blasting me for not wearing a bra, she's trying to get me on wearing regular women's shorts, and any form-fitting type of bottoms, even if they cover my sinful legs. Little Miss Entitled Karen seems to have an issue with the lower half of my body. The second time Karen confronts me, her kids were playing in the streets, and any semblance of pleasantness was gone. She then calls the police on me for indecent exposure in front of her kids, insinuated that I got off on arousing her teen boys. She then called me a hussy, a Jezebel, and said that I desperately needed Jesus because I was wearing jean shorts. It was so embarrassing when the police knocked on my door, and I had to explain that I was in no way doing anything she said I was doing. The woman said that I was parading around nude outside in front of everyone trying to get attention. Now, we live in a nice area. There's lots of woods by lakes and parks, and I like to go out for walks, but it seems every time I step foot out the door, there's stupid entitled Karen making snide remarks, outright threatening to call police again, or gossiping with the other bored housewives. It's getting annoying. So I decided to teach her, if she's going to accuse me of being indecent, why not? So I decided to dress up in the skimpiest Daisy Dukes, decided to wear a half shirt with no bra on, with my abs exposed, to go check the mail. I do want to note that I do not regularly dress like this at all. Now, I must have been quite the sight to Karen, who immediately storms over once she spotted me, nearly knocking over her lawn chair she stood up so fast. And she starts laying into me, how women like me should be in prison, and she's calling 911. At that point, I just stood there, letting her flap her gums for a minute, and then I said to her, "Hey, you can stop the games, Karen. I see the way you look at me. I know you want me." At that very moment, her face goes beet red, and she stammered out and said, "I will pray for you." She then scurried away, and she actually went inside her house. Yeah, so I've read a few stories where Karens do try to police what others wear, and I always think it's crazy, like especially when it's just jean shorts or some form-fitting pants, like nothing indecent about that, guys. And seriously, some people do need hobbies, but who knows, her hobby might be starting trouble whenever she's too bored. So for some context, I'm a 17-year-old male, and I work at a Segway tour company. It's actually really fun. I get to ride Segways around the city and talk to people, and I get paid to do it. So anyways, on this day, there was a tour booked, and I came in about 20 minutes early to answer emails and to get everything ready. And that's when the group shows up with a mother and daughter, and that's when things get a little bit interesting. I tell them I have some waivers for them to sign. I then look at the daughter and ask, "How old are you?" She tells me she's 16, and I say, "Okay, then you don't need to sign a waiver." I ask this because if kids are younger than 18, their parents sign the waivers for them. Now here's where the Karen comes in. The woman only hears me say the first part, so she thought I was asking her daughter how old she was. This is what probably starts it all. So we go on the tour, and while I'm giving my spiel, the mom keeps interrupting me to tell me stuff about her daughter, to find if we're compatible. As I'm giving the tour, out of nowhere she asked, "Hey, are you in college?" I laugh and say, "No, I'm actually a junior in high school." I'm usually pretty free with info about myself on tours because it keeps people relaxed and it initiates conversations during lulls in the tour. Plus it helps with tipping. The mom hears that and says, "Oh, my daughter's also a junior. She's an artist." Stuff like this keeps happening throughout the tour, and every time, the daughter gets redder and redder. My mom does this too, where she just tells random mall attendants about me, so I know what the daughter's going through and I can feel her pain. At the end of the tour, I tell the two of them that they have 15 minutes to go around town and they can meet me back at the Segway place. I then get back and start getting things set up for their return. A little while later, they roll in, pardon the pun, and I take their Segways to start charging them. The mom walks over to me and says, "So, what do you think about my daughter?" I say, pardon me, what? She then goes on and says, "I saw you checking her out during the tour. Are you gonna ask her out?" I say to her, "Ma'am, I'm not really looking for anything right now." And she says, "What? Is my daughter not good enough for you? Is that what you're saying?" I tell her, No, that's not at all. I just got out of a relation." And that's when she interrupts me and says, "Just date my daughter." Now at this point, it's getting pretty awkward, and I say, "I'm sorry, but I don't want to date your daughter. Besides, you haven't even asked her if she wants to date me." At this point, she says, "I'm gonna call your boss and tell him about your terrible customer service." At that, I pull out my phone and say, "Alright, you wanna call him and explain the situation, how you're trying to force me to date your daughter, and you want me fired for saying no?" Then I guess the absurdity of the situation finally sunk in, and her face transitioned from pure rage to slight confusion, and she says, "Wait, no, maybe I don't want to." I tell her, no, let's call him. Let's have this conversation." So the phone starts ringing, and the mom all of a sudden tells her daughter to get out of here. She then runs for the door. The daughter turns to me and says, "I'm sorry," and then follows her mom. This is so funny to me because growing up, I lived next to the sweetest woman ever, who pretty much did the exact same thing to her son. The poor kid was always so embarrassed because every time there was a gathering at my place, she'd knock on the door and bring cookies just to have an excuse to come over. And then she would ask, "Hey, do you have any single girls for my son? I feel like he should be dating someone. Anyone who's cute and into sports." Like, ma'am, everybody here's 24 at the time, and your son was like 15. Let's not get FBI involved. And this is totally something she'd do in public too. Maybe not as aggressive as this mom, but I can totally see it happening. Okay, so today I had the great misfortune of meeting an entitled choosing beggar from Facebook Marketplace to sell a $10 computer part. Now this isn't a rare or unique item, and my listing price was a pretty good deal. So when we were chatting online, the villain in our story didn't try to negotiate. He said he needed it ASAP and he would pay over Venmo, and then agreed to meet me at the local Starbucks on short notice. So the guy shows up and asks to look at the item, and the first thing I notice about him is that he's a pretty big guy. I'm 6'4", and he made me look small. As he's inspecting it, he overshares about his life and why he needs the item. Whatever, I'll listen to a short rambling if that means I'll make a sale. He eventually sends me the Venmo payment and he starts walking away. I then check my phone and see that he only sent me $8, so I stop him and tell him that he's $2 short. Immediately the guy's like, "Oh, it was $10? He then begins scrolling through the chat history where he obviously finds nothing since he didn't negotiate. Then he checks my listing, where he sees it's up for $10. The guy obviously makes this scripted face, as if a revelation came to him, and he says, "Oh, you know what happened? I was talking to some other guy who had it up for $8, and I mixed up the conversations." And I'm like, "Okay, so can you send me the $2? The guy ignores me. He starts saying how it was an honest mistake and it's totally on him. I start to think, okay, at least he's owning up to it. Now if he could just pay me the $2. Until this gem leaves his mouth. The guy says, "So since I own my mistake, why don't you just take the $8 and we can just call it a day?" I tell him no, the item's for $10, not $8. He then says, "Well, you see, I pre-added the money to my Venmo before I got here, so I don't have any more money." Now, since that's not quite how Venmo works, I'm like, so you can't just add the $2 from your bank account to your Venmo? The guy says no. Getting annoyed with the situation, I say, "Look, I'll send you back the $8 and I'll be on my way. No sale." The guy quickly stammers and he blurts out, "Well, I have some change in my car." I ask him, "Is it $2? And the guy says no. At this point, I'm over the interaction, so I say, "Okay, we're done here." The guy then replies, "Look, I drove 30 minutes to get here. Don't tell me I came all the way out here for nothing, because I'll be mad." I then give him a blank stare, and he continues and says, "How old are you?" So being unsure of how that's relevant, I inflate my age by a few years in case he's trying to collect information for some social engineering or something. He then goes, "Hey, let me give you some advice, kid, because I'm older than you. I made an honest mistake and I owned up to it. At the end of the day, $2 isn't that much. It's not worth it over being an honest person." Halfway through, I try to interrupt his stupid advice and he aggressively stops me and says, "Wait, let me finish." So the guy basically demands it for $8. When he finally shuts his mouth, I say, "Let me give you some advice. It's not about the money, it's about the principle. You show up $2 short and you could say it's only $2. Like if I'm selling something for $500 and you show up with $200, you can't say it's no big deal. I don't care what the value is. A deal is a deal." The guy then looks at me silently for a long time. It was at that moment I realized that I'm in an empty Starbucks with a stranger twice my size. Ready to get the hell out of there, I say, "So either you magically come up with $2 or we're done here." So the guy instantly Venmos me the $2. He takes the item and walks away upset without saying anything. I shout after him, "Enjoy, because F you, you cheap mother effer." Yeah, I can't say I've ever encountered something like this, as all my sales on Marketplace and Craigslist have been relatively smooth, thank goodness. I also love how the guy's like, "It's only $2, why can't you accept a little less?" When OP can argue that it's only $2, why can't you pay a little more, sir? Some people are just so darn cheap. So this happened a long time ago. I had an old scooter that I wanted to sell since I bought a car and got my actual driver's license, so I didn't need it anymore. It worked well, always took really good care of it, and the mileage wasn't that bad either. I even just replaced the exhaust, which set me back around €100. The scooter had cost €1,500 when I bought it, and I wanted $500 for it. To the best of my memory, the exchange goes something like this. This was the text messages. So the mom messages me and asked, "Hey, is the scooter still available?" I tell her yes it is, and she says, "I'll give you $200 for it." I tell her, "No, sorry, I won't go any lower than $500. She says to me, "$250. It's for my son, he's 16 and I want to buy him his first scooter, yada yada yada." Again I say, $500 is my lowest. She then comes back and says, $300. I reply $500 firm, and that's when she says $350. I tell her $500 again, she says $400, and I raise the price to €600. And she says, "Okay, $500's good." So after that, we set a date to meet. That's when the woman shows up along with the son. To my complete surprise, they actually showed up with the €500, so the exchange was made, and I hand over the keys. Now I do want to note, for big exchanges like this, I always drop a little note that both of us sign as an agreement of purchase, and I got them to sign the paper along with myself. I explicitly warned both of them that he needs to be careful, as the scooter has quite a lot of thrust on it, and if you're not used to it, it could be tricky for someone who's never rode on one before. Of course, they both ignore me. The son gets on the scooter, starts it, and immediately goes full throttle on my parents' driveway. The kid almost immediately loses control, starts to swerve, and crashes into a nearby flower bed, one that's surrounded with massive stone blocks. The kid crashes it so hard that the front axle of the scooter is completely bent and unusable. The flower bed is relatively unharmed, for those who want to know. The mom then turns to me and says, "The scooter's broken." I tell her, yeah, I can see that. I told you to be careful. She then says, "I'm not paying for a broken scooter. Give me my money back." I say, but your son's the one who broke it after buying it, I might add. And this is where it gets ridiculous. The mom says, "You promised me a working scooter. This one doesn't work. If you don't give me my money back, you're stealing, and I'm calling the police." I tell her, "Go ahead, I have the paperwork here that says you bought it and that it was in working order when you did, so call them." At that point, the son collects the broken scooter, loads it into the car, and they leave. Never heard from them again. Guys, all I can say is wow. I wish I was there to see that because that's just crazy. Imagine buying something from someone, breaking it in front of them, and then demanding the money back saying it was broken when you clearly broke it. Like the audacity of some people, right? And that, my friends, is r/EntitledPeople. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hit that like button. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'm gonna link it right here. It's in r/I don't work here lady, where a Karen demands an old lady serve her and then attacks the old woman. And the old woman teaches her a lesson that she'll never ever forget. Guys, check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.